Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Emily here at the Astral Library. Today I've got a very special video for you. I'm going to be going over my Magical Readathon. So if you don't know, let me go ahead and put you on the Magical Readathon. So the Magical Readathon is a readathon hosted twice a year by G at TheBookRoast here on YouTube. And it's kind of like this RPG style challenge where you create a character and you're attending this magical school called Aurelium. So each quarter you're studying towards a career of your choice that has a set of classes you must take, just kind of like any other magical school. Each semester you must get a certain grade to pass the class, or in terms of spring, which is usually a lighter load, you just have to read a certain book for each class. Autumn gets a little harder because not only do you have to read certain books for certain classes, but you have to achieve a certain letter grade, and each grade has its own prompt. I'll get into that a little further when I introduce you to my character, but I kind of just want to introduce you to the world and read you a little bit of the history. So I actually have an art journal where I keep track of the history of the world as well as just a little bit of my character. So I'll be flipping through some of the pages and reading from it to kind of precursor what is my TBR for this autumn fall semester. So I want to start with just a brief history of the world, and this is what my notebook opens up to. So you can see here we got this beautiful art that G has made for us. She's actually got these documents that you could print out. So I have it in the black and white, but there's fully colored versions of these on the kind of Google Drive, which I will leave a link to her video in the description down below. Please check it out. It's such a fun readathon and anyone could join at any time. So don't feel like you have to wait until next spring to join. You can join now. And let me tell you, it's my favorite time of year because this readathon's so much fun and it helps me read so many more books than I otherwise wouldn't have. Okay, but a brief history of the world. So I'm just going to read this straight from my notebook here, and I want you guys to just listen to the amount of lore G has kind of created for this readathon. Some say that before the Amalur lit the sky, Adelia was but an ordinary planet. That is, of course, not true. Very little of our history predates Amalurite because very little of our history was worth noting then. You might have heard that our lands were devoid of magic. Truth is, there's always been magic on Adelia. However, only creatures most foul were able to tap into it. All we knew back then was darkness, demons, pain, and despair. Those were dark times indeed. What we didn't know yet was that a great power was headed our way, and with it, insurmountable hope. There is no shortage of records of the night the meteor, now called the Amalur, lit the sky. People sang songs and told tales of the night sky first cried purple, the serene everlight that lasted months, the reckoning, the lilac dream. Fear of the unknown has turned to marvel. What was supposed to have been destructive proved to be revolutionary. Now, the symbol of hope, power, and resistance, the Amalur is both an inspiring myth to those less educated and a beacon of enlightenment to the inquisitive, for it has infused the land of Adelia with Amalurite, an element of pure, wild energy. The impact caused a gradual shift of continents away from the epicenter, and for a while, that was that. Little manifestations of power from the people of Adelia slipped into the ancient texts, discounted as curiosities, oddities, or miracles. We know now that it was the beginning of magic. Two earthling brothers, one wishing a whirlwind away, another halting the rain. Mysterious wisps of light defending younglings from sky demons. Animals bonding with children for a lifetime of protection. Gods whispering to those who listen. Pacts made with those who ask. Elven blacksmiths noticing curious powers within their work. An Atelian rumored to have shapeshifted into shadow birds to flee a battle and warn the rest of the coven. Just tales and myths and olden stories. The first to ever recognize, study, and record their findings on the emerging magic was Eldor and Uni, a human and a dwarf. As the knowledge and teachings began to spread more and more, people tapped into their talents. More fights were won against terrors that lurked just below the surface, driving them further away. But magic is wild and dangerous and not to be underestimated. Corruption is easier to succumb to than most realize, and madness was always just around the corner for those wielding the most power. A system began to form. Those who survived their own magic took on apprentices when met with old age to pass their knowledge and help guide the next generation. But whenever a sorcerer achieved a certain level of proficiency in their craft, they felt a pull impossible to ignore towards Aurelium. They all journeyed, but few ever returned. In time, this became known as the novice path. We should note that one group in particular that embarked on their novice path, the First Order. The novice path is notoriously still difficult to tread, but it is nothing in comparison to the wilderness it was back then. Despite the odds, the First Order have rediscovered the Amalur crater with a meteor cliff that floats above it, enriched with beautiful emerald ley lines. In their journals, they describe overwhelming sensations of peace, eagerness, concentration, motivation, and togetherness. The Aurelium Academy was established 3 years later. So that is just the history of this world, and I remember when I first read this, I was absolutely captivated. G's done such an amazing job in creating this this readathon, and not only giving us beautiful lore to go with it, but she creates kind of reading rooms. She's an amazing host, and I'll again leave everything linked in the description down below because you guys need to check this out. It's so much fun, and I hope you join us. If not this semester, then perhaps next spring. So like I said, in this readathon, you create a character who is from this world. So I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about my character. So her name is Kaleidoscope. So she is from Dark Meadow, this kind of cold and stormy place in Adelia. So Kaleidoscope is actually part of the Ithilien race, which not much is known about them other than they come from the great underworld library of Dark Meadow. So she's this kind of like spooky, mysterious figure. So when you go to Aurelium, you must choose a career, and the career that Kaleidoscope has chosen, or by extension I have chosen, is the Story Weaver career. She doesn't like to talk a lot about her past. She's kind of this whimsical being with kind of like trinkets always stuck in her hair, usually a pencil or two kind of tucked away behind her ear, and she always has this notebook with her where she's jotting down notes in class, in middle of conversations, on a dinner date. What's in that notebook? No one knows, and anytime anyone tries to get a peek into it, something mysterious happens. So not many are willing to try now. So the guild I'm a part of is actually the Archivist, or which is a guild of a lore keeping. So I thought it went very well with the Story Weaver career and kind of this note-taking Kaleidoscope. Adding on to this mystery of who is Kaleidoscope and kind of what is she doing exactly, not only in the Archivist and in this ancient library, but what is she doing as a Story Weaver? Is it for good or is it for evil? We don't know. All right, now that you've met my character, let's go ahead and jump straight into what classes am I taking for this upcoming semester. So I actually have a whole page dedicated in my journal to what I have to take for this course. So I have all my classes listed, and as you can kind of see in this top left hand corner, I have my goals. So for this quarter, I must get an O in Inscription, a Q in Psionics and Divination, and a D in Lore. So what this translates to is my easiest class is Inscription, where I only have to fulfill 1 prompt. My hardest class is Lore, where I have to fulfill 3, and Psionics and Divination is my middle class, where I have to fulfill 2 prompts. So let's go ahead and dive into what those prompts are and what books am I using to fulfill them. So for my easiest class, Inscription, my prompt is O, which I'm taking the course Glyphs, and I'm learning the glyph Tidy. So the prompt is book from the end of the year TBR. For this, I am using Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation Volume 2. So if you saw my mid-year freak out, you know that this is one of the books I want to finish before the end of the year. I've started it, but it's been so long, so I'm probably gonna have to restart this book, which means it's perfect for the Magical Readathon because it gets me that much further in finishing out this series, especially now that it's complete. Alright, so my next class is Psionics and Divination, and for this I must pass 2 prompts. The first is O, Introduction to Tarot. So what this means is I have to generate a random tarot card, and from that card choose elements to pick out a book from it. So let's go ahead and see what the tarot gods say for me. So I have it on my iPad here, so I'll pop it up on screen. Let's see if the tarot gods are nice to me. Alright, so I have got the Fool. So as you can kind of see on screen here, we have the sun, we have some yellow going on, we have a dog and a person and some flowers. So I think I have the perfect book for this. Hold on, give me a second, I'm gonna go grab it. Okay, so to go with my Fool tarot card, I'm going to do Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. So this is the first book in the sequel tetralogy series of the Red Rising. And the reason I chose it is because if you look on the spine here, we got this little golden sun. And not only did that, we have the kind of yellow, the same yellow from the tarot card. So I think this is perfect. I've been meaning to read this anyway. And then now that I'm given a chance, I'm going to read this, even though I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot because this is a chunky book. Like it is, let's see, it is almost 600 pages. It's 596. So I'm definitely going to be reading quite a bit this month, but it's okay because I know I'm going to love this. And then as soon as I get started, I know I'm going to fly through it. If you don't know, Red Rising is a sci-fi series that follows our main character, Darrow, who is a red in a society where people are broken down into colors, and Darrow is trying to overthrow the system. And in the sequel series, it takes place 10 or so years after that rebellion. So that's all I can really tell you about this series without giving too much spoilers, and I don't know too much about what's going on in the sequel series. I've purposely kind of kept myself in the dark because I've been wanting to go into it kind of blind, just like I did with Red Rising. The second second level I must pass in Psionics Divination is Q, reading the future or a book set in the future. Now this is another one from my mid-year freakout, but I'm going to choose Gemina, which has been on my TBR for a really long time. And as I kind of said at the end of that mid-year freakout, I want to finish this because it's been taunting me. Like, look at that bookmark. It's been taunting me forever. And since it's been forever, I'm going to have to restart it, which is just par for the course. It's okay. I'm excited. It's going to go by fast since it's a mixed media book. Another sci-fi, which is kind of funny. I guess it's a sci-fi month. I guess I'm in my sci-fi era. It's going to be either terrifying or great. We'll see. The Illuminate Files is a mixed media sci-fi series where we're following various people in space, and usually there's some sort of like AI system that's involved, or at least that's what was going on in the first one. In the second book, we're actually following two new characters, Hannah and Nick, as they are kind of stuck on this ship while it's being taken over by an enemy force. And while Hannah and Nick were not the closest of friends, they must work together to kind of figure out how to get out of this mess and save all their friends and family. So that takes care of the first two classes. Now for lore, this one is quite a difficult class because not only is it hard in terms of the prompts, but it's also the one I have to fulfill the most prompts from. So the first prompt is actually, Tale from the Guide. So this one is actually a bookseller's recommendation. So I must go into a bookstore and get a recommendation from someone who works there, or go on one of the kiosks that says like staff picks. So instead of just telling you what I pick, we're gonna go ahead and jump to future Emily, and she's gonna kind of walk us through the process, give us some B-roll footage of picking the book, and I will talk to you then on what I got.
All right, we have made it to the Barnes & Noble. The goal is to just go in and grab the single book, not to come out with a whole bunch. I don't know if I'm actually going to talk to any booksellers. I've been teaching all day, so I'm kind of peopled out. So we'll see if I either talk to someone and get a recommendation, or if I just happen to look at one of the little end caps that say like staff recommend. So let's go ahead and go see what's available for those staff recs. Okay, mission successful. Filming was awkward to say the least, but I have picked a book. I grabbed the Foxglove King by Hannah Whitten. It had one of those little placards like saying staff recommendations and kind of like what I was about to highlight it, and it sounded really good. I will read you the synopsis when I get home because I'm running late for dinner with my parents. So I will catch you in the flip side.
Hello. Okay, final update before we jump back to past Emily. So I just wanted to read you the synopsis for the Foxglove King by Hannah Whitten. Lore has been living by her wits since she was a child, running poisons for the cartel that took her in, avoiding the attentions of the law, and keeping her affinity for death's magic a secret. Because mortem is a rare and illicit commodity, and using it could mean death. When a job goes wrong and Lore is captured by the St. King's warrior monks, she expects a pyre. But King August has a different plan. Entire villages on the outskirts of the country have been dying overnight, seemingly at random. Lore can either use her magic to find out what's happening, or die. And the king suspects his arrogant, handsome heir is behind it. Thrust into a lavish court where no one can be believed and even fewer can be trusted, Lore must navigate an intricate web of politics, religion, and forbidden romance to solve the king's mystery. A mystery more dangerous and twisted than Lore can even imagine. So, yes, it sounded super interesting, even though she's chunky. But yeah, so this is the seller's recommendation pick for the TBR. Let's go ahead and jump right back into what else I'm reading for this course. So jumping back in the past here, the next prompt I have to fulfill is Q, Cursed Cloak, which just means clothing on the cover. So for this, I, of course, chose the Sapphire Altar by David Daglish, which, again, if you saw my mid-year freakout, it was kind of a precursor to this video, if you really think about it, because this book was yet again mentioned on a book I want to finish by the end of the year, but also I had just finished The Bladed Faith a few weeks ago, so I've been itching to pick this book up, so now is the perfect time. And as you can kind of see on this cover, that the person is wearing like this armor and these kind of like shells, so that's clothing. Armor's clothing. So I'm very excited to start this and see what's going on. All right, and for the last requirement for my lore class, it is D, Underworld 101, or read a horror book. And for this prompt, I chose the Final Girl Support Group group by Grady Hendrix. So I read my first Grady Hendrix books a couple years ago. I read the Southerners Books Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and I originally had bought this book to give to a friend for Christmas that year because I was adoring Southerners Book Club, but I ended up hearing like mixed reviews on this, so I ended up keeping this for myself and buying her a copy of Southerners Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So I've been left with this, and I love horror movies, and the final girl is such an interesting trope in a horror movie, so I'm very excited to kind of see where I fall on the spectrum in this Grady Hendrix book. I don't know, it sounds super interesting. So the premise for this book is that there is a whole bunch of final girls who have survived some sort of like slaughter in the past, and they've kind of come together and made a support group, hence the name. But one by one they start getting picked off and killed, so it's kind of a mystery to see who's killing them off and why are they killing them. But I'm a little nervous going into this, but it's not that long of a book, so if I hate it, it won't take me that long at least. Okay, so that completes all the classes and the prompts I have to fulfill for that. However, G has been kind enough, or perhaps evil enough, to give us extra challenges to go along with the semester. So one of those extra challenges is to summon an impling. So for that, I'll pop a graphic on screen so you can see it a little clearly. We have to pick either a single book that fulfills all of these little points here that are kind of branching off, or we have to choose multiple books to kind of fulfill them and make a connection so we can summon the impling here depicted on the page. So the prompts for this are between 400 and 450 pages. One letter appears twice. It is released this year or last year. Blue on the cover. You have to start it at night, and it must be a read from before author. So I was super torn about this. I didn't know which one I wanted to do, and I wanted to pick a single book that I could use to fulfill it rather than having to fit in a couple, just because my TBR is already a little lengthy for this month. And the book I chose is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. So I read the story life of AJ Fickelry, which I adored by her. When Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow came out last year, everyone started talking about it, but I've been putting it off for so long because one, I didn't know it was actually by Gabriel Zevin, and two, I was a little wary because it is a book that deals with video games, and video games are such a huge interest of mine, and it's never crossed well in books of mine. I read Ready Player One and I absolutely hated it. So I was a little wary to pick up another book dealing with video games, but everyone and their mother has been loving this book, and I trust Gabriel Zevin to really pull me in and to do it right. So I actually have this on Kindle because I want to order the holographic hardback cover version. So before I can get my hands on that, I figured I'd just read it on Kindle, make sure I love it before I go out of my way to order that specific edition. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider leaving a thumbs up and a comment down below. Let me know what books you're reading this month. If you're interested in starting the Magical Readathon, G does such an amazing job, and I promise you, if you give it a shot, you're going to love it. But that's all for me. Please consider subscribing. It helps the channel out quite a bit, and it lets me know that you want to see more content like this. But otherwise, I will see you next Monday with a new video. Bye, guys!